What secret are you keeping that is ruining your life? Story 1. I no longer want to live with my parents. I'm 27 years old, earning a good income, and I could move out at any time. However, my parents are both permanently disabled, and I not only pay rent, but also cover most of the bills. They're currently fighting to keep their house, and if I move out, everything will likely collapse. They'd lose the house and be forced to move. Update. My parents' fight to save the house came to an unfortunate end. They lost it. They tried to refinance, but it seemed the banks weren't willing to cooperate. Despite meeting the income requirements through Social Security, veterans benefits, food stamps, and more, the banks repeatedly claimed they were missing documents. Each time, my father would submit everything requested and keep proof, but after months of waiting, the banks would reject the refinance again for the same reasons. It felt unfair, possibly even illegal, and they had to hire an attorney to fight back. Even so, they lost the house. On top of that, there were constant interruptions in their government benefits like Social Security and food stamps, which only made matters worse. For me, I finally made the hard decision to leave. It wasn't easy, knowing the financial strain they were under. Even if they managed to keep the house, it would probably be better for them to move to a more affordable place. My dad, however, is determined to fight for the home his father built, even though the toll of the financial stress was obvious on both my parents. Living in that environment was taking a severe toll on me as well. The constant stress was overwhelming, and I realized if I stayed much longer, I might not make it through. Last year, I found a much better paying job, one that allowed me to move out while still supporting my parents a little. I've been living on my own for a few months now, and things are finally looking up for me. My dad is still fighting for the house, but I know the reality. He'll likely lose the fight, and they'll have to move somewhere cheaper. I'm close enough to help when needed, but I've come to terms with the fact that they'll need to move. While it'll be a difficult change, they have enough resources to support themselves in a more affordable area, even if it's far away. I feel lucky in a way. I stayed strong through some of the hardest times in my life, worked hard, and eventually got to a place where I could live independently while still offering some help to my parents. It's not as much support as before, but it's enough to keep them afloat. I still feel guilty about moving out before the end, when they're finally forced to leave the house, but it was a choice I had to make to save myself. Now I feel like my real life has finally started, and I can only hope things continue to improve. It's not the happiest ending, but I'm in a much better place now. Story 2. Throwaway. My daughter isn't biologically mine. My fiancé went away for a Tough Mudder event the weekend my daughter was conceived. One day while my fiancé was at work, I decided to take the baby for a DNA test. Sure enough, just like on one of those TV shows, I was not the father. Later, I went to a doctor and found out I'm sterile. I haven't told anyone because I love the little girl as if she were my own, but it stings when people comment on how much she looks like her mom and never mention me. I could never bring myself to say anything to her because I don't want to lose my role in her life. As far as she knows, I'm her father, and she loves me unconditionally. I can't ruin that. Story 3. When she and I first met, she had a drug problem. I was coming out of a terrible relationship where I had been cheated on countless times. When I met her, I suppose I was looking for someone to take care of. I felt sympathy for her and worked hard to help her escape her situation and what I thought was her addiction. In the process, I fell in love. She eventually got off the drugs when she became pregnant. I always suspected she was cheating on me, and later confirmed she had been with 4 of my supposed friends before her pregnancy. After our son was born, things improved briefly, but she began slipping back into her old habits. Her addiction was something I couldn't comprehend. I had my own history, smoking pot and overcoming a Lortab habit after a car accident, but the substances she used were beyond my understanding. Despite this, we got married. Over the next 3 months, things spiraled. She started staying out all night, avoiding me, and keeping my son away so I couldn't spend time with him. I'd leave for work at 6:30 a.m. and return around 5 p.m. to find her passed out on the couch. Our son, unsupervised, would make a mess, leaving me to clean, cook, bathe him, and put him to bed. Eventually, I confronted her. She came home one day and said she was leaving and taking our son. I tried to stop her but gave up after a heated exchange. Minutes later, the police were at my door. She had used a friend's phone to call them, claiming I had assaulted her. The officers found no evidence of abuse, but she insisted on a citizen's arrest. I was convicted of simple assault, domestic violence. After that, I lost my home, custody, and visitation rights. For 9 months, I was completely isolated from my son. During our brief conversations after her father's death, she made strange comments about her brother. She admitted they were sharing a bed and later described him in a way that raised serious concerns. When they moved, the pattern continued. They always shared a bed. Both of them would insist to others unprompted that their relationship was strictly platonic. After I regained custody of my son, he admitted that his mother and her brother had told him it was okay for brothers and sisters to be boyfriends and girlfriends. He also shared graphic details about things he had witnessed, which haunt me to this day. I later discovered letters she wrote to her brother that were deeply disturbing, along with a video she filmed of him in the shower. I can't write any more for now. It's too much to relive. Maybe I'll share more another time. Story 4. I love my fiancée, but her complete lack of S-drive is making me lose interest in our relationship. Over the past 3 years, I've tried everything I could think of to spark her interest, but nothing has worked. We fought about it many times, and now I've finally given up. When we first started dating, we were both extremely sexual, but now she only wants to have sex a few times a month. She says she enjoys it, and even orgasms when we do, but she often rushes me to finish. Even when it happens, it's rarely intimate or satisfying for me. Her lack of interest makes me feel unattractive and undesirable, which in turn makes it harder for me to be affectionate with her. She's beautiful, fun, and honestly way out of my league. Because of that, my friends constantly pressure me, saying things like, "If you don't marry her, you're an idiot." We live together, but I've started isolating myself from her and my friends. The anxiety of feeling like I'm making the wrong decision by marrying her is overwhelming. Most nights I put on headphones and play games while she watches TV or goes out drinking with her friends. Thank you for giving me a space to share this. Whether or not anything changes, it feels amazing to finally get it off my chest. Story 5. I'm a well-known chef, nothing too big, but I've been featured on a few food TV and cooking channel shows. Anthony Bourdain even visited one of my restaurants in the early days of no reservations. Here's my secret. I hate most of the food I cook. I cater to a wealthy, pretentious crowd, and it's incredible how sheep-like these people are. I could plate a pile of dirt, call it braised, finish it with truffle oil, and serve it with a tablespoon of caviar, and they'd rave about it. These people are obsessed with buzzwords and brand names, and they convince themselves they have refined taste. In reality, most of them have no clue what they're eating. I'm currently trying to sell my share of my 2 restaurants to my business partner or other investors. I just want to get out and open a small place serving fried chicken wings. None of this goose liver and fish egg nonsense. Story 6. I know everything my father has done to my mother and everything else about him. He's always been, and still is, a hardcore alcoholic. He constantly tells me he's been sober for years. But I work at a local grocery store and I've seen him buy alcohol with my own eyes. Once, during an argument that got out of hand, he punched my mother multiple times. When she threatened to go to the police, he forced her into the car, drove her to the station, and said, "Go ahead. I dare you to get out." She was so terrified that she stayed in the car. For years, I've distanced myself from him, but he's been trying to reconnect. All he does is make empty promises and lie. When I was younger, he'd make plans with me, and I'd get so excited to spend time with him, only for him to never show up or call. When he finally did, it was always with some ridiculous excuse, like his car, which he doesn't even own, broke down on the highway. I've stopped answering his calls, but he finds ways to contact me. He uses other phones so I won't recognize the number, or he shows up at the grocery store where I work. To make it harder for me to ignore him, he always brings my grandmother or grandfather along. I refuse to say I miss him or love him anymore. He's 45, still lives with my grandmother, and hasn't held a job for more than a year. My grandmother enables him by giving him money, refusing to see how messed up he is. Even though I want to tell him how much I hate him for what he's done to my mother, my sister, and me, I can't bring myself to do it. I don't care if this gets buried. I'm just glad I finally typed it all out. Story 7. I'm a biological heterosexual woman, but I have to shave my face every day like a man. I won't let anyone touch my face out of fear they'll feel stubble. If I stay over at a friend's house, I hide a razor and shaving cream in my bag and wake up insanely early to shave in the bathroom before anyone else is awake. I've tried laser hair removal, but much of my hair is too light to respond, yet still too dark to ignore if it grows out. I've never found an electrologist that actually eliminates the hair permanently. On top of that, I have hair on my stomach that grows all the way up to a few inches below my chest. I've been tested for hormone imbalances, and all my levels come back normal. Doctors suspect polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, but they can't get the numbers to confirm it. This condition has caused so much anxiety for me, especially around intimacy. I'm terrified of anyone touching areas I shave, and I tense up during eons to the point that it's extremely painful. I confided in a close friend about my struggles with S, and he offered to help me work through the pain. We slept together once, and he gave me herpes. He was the fourth person I'd ever slept with. I was 22 at the time. I'm 30 now. I haven't been with anyone since. I'm convinced no one would want to be with an excessively hairy woman who struggles with penetrative S and might give them an STD. I feel disgusting, like my body is a prison and my V is a toxic area I can never escape. Story 8. I didn't have the best childhood. I was bullied, not for having glasses or braces or being short or tall, but because I was adopted in a different race than everyone else. Growing up as an Asian kid in a racist environment in the Midwest left me with a lot of unresolved anger toward those who were racist to me. I would get phone calls from random people yelling things like, "Nobody likes you, go back to China. I'm not Chinese. Got rice, bitch." Or, "Your parents never loved you." I wrote down the numbers and told myself that if I ever found out who these people were, I'd get revenge. I never told my parents until recently, partly because they aren't the same race as me, and I didn't think they'd understand. I also didn't want to seem like a tattletale when I was younger. The racist abuse I face still affects me. I have major social anxiety and struggle with depression. I know those bullies don't think about me now and probably have no idea what they did to me. But to them, I say this: you messed some of us up really, really badly. I never had any desire to go to college. Not because I'm unintelligent, but because I'm afraid of facing racism that might push me over the edge. There are 3 large universities near me, and even just visiting friends at those schools has resulted in racist remarks being thrown my way. I don't go looking for conflict, but it always seems to find me. When I hear about school shootings, it doesn't shock me. Honestly, there were times I was so angry and hurt that I'm surprised I didn't cause some kind of tragedy myself. I doubt anyone will read this, but I needed to get it off my chest. If you made it this far, thank you. Story 9. My husband is having an affair. I know, but I'm too scared to confront him. He's so narcissistic that he doesn't see anything wrong with his actions. We have a 9-year-old son, and I'm afraid confronting him will destroy him. Edit. My fear stems from my past. My mom was married 7 times while I was growing up. I'm terrified of becoming her, even though I know it's irrational. I have a good job and can afford to leave, but something keeps holding me back. I have solid proof of his affair, pictures, texts, and Facebook messages, but I haven't confronted him yet. I know how he'll react because this isn't the first time he's cheated. He did the same to his first wife before me and severely messed up their child. Back then, he convinced me the affair was entirely her fault. I was young and naive and believed him. It's not as simple as just leaving or staying. I love my son more than anything and swore I'd never raise him in the kind of environment I grew up in. Last night, my son told me he thinks his dad needs anger management. That broke my heart. I know my husband is a liar and an asshole, but I don't know what the right answer is yet. This post was meant to share a secret that's ruining my life, and that's what I did. I don't know what I'll do moving forward, but I appreciate the encouragement and even the harsh comments. Storytime. I am in an insane amount of debt from supporting my boyfriend through medical school. I had to cover his meals and daily essentials like toiletries with my credit card and inheritance money. He had no family to help him, and his student loans barely covered his rent, books, transportation, and some food. Now I owe $30,000 in student loans on top of my car loan, car insurance, gas, and other bills. I recently started working full-time, but I'm still struggling to pay off the $5,000 on my credit card from the years I supported him. For 1.5 of those years, I was unemployed. And for 2 more, I only worked part-time while attending school myself. I'm doing my best to make payments on my own student loans, but it's tough. I recently applied for a $500 car loan and was turned down because of my credit card debt. That rejection was a harsh reminder of the financial mess I'm in. He graduates in May, though, so he'll finally be able to support himself once he starts his residency. I just hope things get better soon. Story 11. No one will probably read this, but I did something terrible as a kid, and it still eats me up to this day. I went to school with a kid who bullied me relentlessly. He shoved me down the stairs, hit me with a baseball bat, and caused me to have bruises and broken bones. He even ruined my brand new NFL coat by writing faggot on it with a Sharpie. The school did nothing. It was a private religious school, and his father was both the head pastor and the school principal. On top of that, the school lied to my parents, saying I was self-harming, which wasn't true. At just 10 years old, I couldn't convince them otherwise. Eventually, my parents moved me to a different school, and I started thriving. I made friends, and the bullying stopped. But a year later, my old school shut down, and that kid ended up at my new school. He immediately started taunting me, saying he'd make my life hell again. One day during class, a friend panicked because drug dogs were coming to do locker searches, and he had a lot of weed on him. I knew I had an opportunity to get back at my bully. After class, I caught up to him in the hallway and slipped the weed into his bag. The next thing I knew, he was arrested and expelled. I didn't see him again until I heard what happened years later. His parents sent him to a boarding school where he got an infection from a minor cut and had to have his leg amputated. While he was in the hospital, his father died in a car accident on his way to visit him. I recently looked up his sister on Facebook and found out more about what happened. She said he struggled with the amputation and never fully recovered. His health declined, and she believes he blames himself for his father's death. He refuses to use crutches or a prosthetic, confining himself to a wheelchair. After their father's death, he became a fanatical religious zealot. He's now a vice principal at another private school, but his sister says he's an unapologetic bigot who blames black people for his arrest, his infection, and his father's accident. Their mother passed away from breast cancer the year his sister got married. She now has a daughter and is devoted to her family, but doesn't speak to her brother anymore because he's so negative. I don't know how to feel about all of this. It's been over 10 years since it happened, but I still wonder if I went too far. Story 12. I wish my brother were dead. I know how terrible that sounds, but there are reasons behind it. My brother was born 3 years before me with a malformed brain, causing him to function like a 6-month-old for his entire life. He screams at night, constantly wants to eat, and is incredibly temperamental. He's now 20 years old and still lives with me and my parents. Over the years, his condition has worsened. He has diabetes, a gimpy leg, and is legally blind, though he can see very poorly. His malformed brain also caused an immune system deficiency, so even a mild illness can become life-threatening. For example, when I was 9 and he was 12, our family got sick during Christmas. We had to leave early because he started having seizures and went into cardiac arrest. The reason I wish he would die is not out of hate, but out of love. He has no quality of life. He can only express vague emotions like happy, sad, or confused, and he can't communicate or connect with the world. He lives in a constant state of isolation, and I can't imagine how lonely, scared, and lost he must feel every single day. His condition is also an enormous burden on my parents. My brother screams and cries through the night, keeping everyone awake. Most nights, we get only 3 hours of sleep while taking turns watching him. My parents have sacrificed so much of their happiness, their energy, and their health to care for him. I know my parents only had me because they wanted at least one normal sibling for my other brother. If I could trade my existence to make my older brother normal or to spare him from being born into this situation, I would. I love my brother deeply, and my desire for his death comes from a place of protective love. I can't stand the idea of him continuing to live in misery and fear. My darkest days don't even come close to the confusion and suffering he must endure every single day. If it were legal, I would have ended his life years ago. Not out of selfishness, but to give my parents the peace they deserve and to free my brother from a life of endless pain and isolation. I want my brother to find peace, and I believe the only way for that to happen is for him to pass away. I wish he could die because I love him. Story 13. I wouldn't say this ruins my life, but it requires constant effort and commitment. I was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome and OCD as a child. Over the years, I've estimated that I have somewhere between 500 and 1,000 unique tics and compulsions. These tics can be triggered by almost anything: looking at someone, seeing a specific number or color, or noticing something in the background. They range from physical movements to mental rituals. some noticeable to others and some happening entirely in my head. When I'm in public or interacting with people, I work hard to suppress them. It's exhausting, but I prefer to avoid drawing attention or having to explain myself. I'm not ashamed, but I'd rather fit in without the constant need to justify my behaviors. Despite the challenges, I've earned a master's degree and become a very social person. Still, the constant discomfort and the inability to ever truly relax are tough. It's not something I'd wish on anyone. That said, I'm grateful for the physical and mental strength I've developed in dealing with these disorders. They've shaped who I am, and I wouldn't trade the person I've become. Story 14. When I was 12, my father, a large man at 6 feet tall and 260 pounds, beat me brutally with a belt at my mother's request. He gripped my upper arm so tightly that he left a handprint, hitting the back of my legs until I wet myself. The beating left oozing welts that stuck to my pants, making it impossible for me to change for gym class for 2 weeks. I told my teacher I'd fallen down the stairs to hide the truth. This happened because my mother overheard me calling her a bitch on the phone to a friend. The irony is overwhelming. My father beat me savagely while my mother watched, and my siblings upstairs did nothing. Afterward, he called 2 of my older sisters downstairs and forced me to explain to them why they wouldn't be able to return to their universities after the holiday break, blaming me for my mother having to quit her part-time job to watch over me. He didn't follow through on the threat, but it added to the humiliation. From that moment, my only goal was to grow big enough to fight back. I fantasized about beating him to within an inch of his life, preferably while my mother watched. I planned everything, determined to get a full-ride scholarship and leave home, but not before getting my revenge. By my 3rd year of high school, things were going according to plan. I had a 4.0 plus GPA and ranked in the top 10% of my class. Then my father was diagnosed with stomach cancer. I spent my junior year driving my mother to the hospital every night. That fall, he returned home, but his health was clearly failing. One day, he called me into the garage, furious about spilled milk on his beer. He slapped me across the face, a rare act of violence since I'd grown taller and stronger. I stared him down, ready to strike, and he knew the moment had come. But instead of hitting him, I shook my head in pity and walked away. 2 months later, on New Year's Eve, he died. I was relieved. I got my scholarship, went to college, and built a wonderful life with my wife and children. Our 3 kids grew up without a single beating, and we're all close thanks to my wife's loving nature. I've cut ties with my siblings and only allowed my mother to visit for the sake of my children, though I never shared the full story with her. Now at 55, I don't think about it every day, but when I do, I still get angry. He stole from me the revenge I felt I deserved. The fair died before I could give him what he deserved. Story 15. I absolutely detest my mother, and I've been stuck with her my entire life because she won custody of me due to the justice system's bias toward mothers. I blame her for my parents' divorce. She cheated on my dad twice when I was a child. My dad found out about one of the affairs because, at just 3 years old, I crawled into bed with who I thought was him after a nightmare. She is incredibly controlling. She dictates everything, from finances to what I eat. Her control over food has caused me to develop eating problems. I now hide food and feel powerless about my choices, down to the cream in my coffee. When she doesn't get her way, she becomes abusive. Once she hit me over the head so hard I got a concussion, all because I refused to show her my bank account. I'm 26 years old. I haven't told anyone about her abuse because she's in the military. As much as I hate her, I don't want to ruin her career. I know that working and making money are the only things she truly cares about. She hates me because she believes I stole my father's love from her. Story 16. My marriage is over, but I can't move on because I fear my wife will kill herself. About 6 months ago, my wife started helping a friend who was having a mental health crisis. The friend was an ex-boyfriend, but I don't believe she was cheating. She seemed to view him as someone to protect. In September, however, he died in a tragic suicide by cop situation. Since then, my wife has spiraled into a dark place. She hasn't spent a night at our home since his death and now lives in his house with the family's permission. She has completely abandoned our relationship. We have a 2-year-old daughter, and while she's still good to her, my wife is unstable. A few months after his death, she attempted suicide and came very close to succeeding. She spent a week in the hospital and psych ward, but it didn't help. She denies being depressed and talks about leaving, even leaving our daughter. My wife has always struggled with mental health issues due to a difficult childhood and bad family dynamics. Our marriage was never great. It felt like walking on eggshells, but it was functional. We got married after an unplanned pregnancy, which I now know was a mistake. While I adore my daughter more than anything, I can no longer say I love my wife. Her suicide attempt cost us a lot of money adding to our debt. She's never been interested in budgeting or cutting back on expenses. And now that she's quit working, she lives entirely off my income. Despite being separated for months, we remain cordial. But every time I bring up divorce, she falls into a deep depression and threatens suicide. She believes everyone abandons her, and leaving her would make me just another person who let her down. But the truth is, she abandoned me first. I want to move on with my life, rebuild my finances, and provide stability for my daughter. But I'm terrified my wife will take her own life if I do. I don't want that to happen. I care for her and feel deeply sorry for her, but I also feel trapped. I've shared some of this with my closest friends and parents, but I'm hesitant to tell others. I fear they'll judge me for wanting to leave my wife during such a difficult time. But how long does this go on? She didn't turn to me for comfort when she needed it most, and that has hurt me deeply. I feel stuck in limbo, trying to enjoy moments with my daughter while navigating life as best as I can. But I don't know what to do next, and the uncertainty is overwhelming. Story 17. I want to die. I've been suicidal since my time in Iraq, but even before that, I always wondered about death and what comes after. I'm an atheist, but I'm also deeply curious about the world and the things we don't yet understand. I've often wondered, what if I'm wrong? I want to find out. I am so miserable every single day. I've battled depression since before I enlisted, but it only got worse during my deployment. The strange thing is, I've become so good at hiding how I feel that even my wife seems to forget or act like everything's fine. Don't get me wrong, I love her with everything in me and always will. She's the only reason I haven't killed myself yet. I've told my therapist this during the few sessions I've attended. I'm not afraid of death or hurting myself, but I don't want to hurt her. I've tried medications like Zoloft and Prozac, but they make me feel nothing. And I'd rather be miserable and sad than feel numb. Walking through the rain and feeling cold and wet is better than walking through it and feeling nothing at all. Talking to people hasn't helped me. If I'm honest, I just want to be left alone. Sometimes I wish one of the rockets in Baghdad had landed 15 feet closer. I daydream about ways to distance myself from my wife, even though I love her deeply, so that I don't hurt her as much when I eventually give in and end it. There are moments when I wish she wasn't so loving and understanding. Moments when I wish she didn't save me every time. We're fairly open with each other about most things, but I can't bring myself to tell her this. I know it would hurt her to know how much I want to let go. And now we're talking about having kids and it terrifies me. Part of me wants to be a father. I want to experience raising a child and helping them grow into a good person who can contribute to the world. But the other part of me is terrified that my issues will rub off on them. I'm scared that when it gets too bad and I give up, I'll abandon a child who needs a father. I know this might not get read by many, but it feels good to finally type this out. Not even on a throwaway account, because at this point, I don't care. I like to think I'm an honest person. Story 18. In 2009, my mother passed away. In March 2012, my greatest friend in salvation, my horse of 17 years, died. The following month in April, my fiancé, the love of my life and the greatest person I've ever known, died suddenly. He left for work, had a heart attack, and no one stopped to help him. We were supposed to get married that November. To make things worse, I lost custody of his son, who we had raised for nearly 2 years. The judge gave him back to his biological mother, a tweaker, and her registered S-offender boyfriend. In May 2012, my dad was diagnosed with incurable lung cancer and given only a few months to live. In August, the pit bull I had raised from birth turned on us and had to be put down. The following month in September, coyotes wiped out my entire flock of chickens, including my fiancé's pet chicken. And in December, those same coyotes killed my pug. I know it sounds ridiculous with everything else going on, but I really miss that dog. I work 2 jobs, 60 to 80 hours a week. I've met a great guy, but now he's in kidney failure. My secret? I feel like I've failed everyone I've loved the most, the people who needed me. I'm helpless to help them, and I'm exhausted. I'm so tired that I just want to quit. I'm worried about my daughter. She keeps choosing men who are worthless, guys who do drugs, have no jobs or cars. She's currently living with my dad, and I can't stop thinking about what she's going to do when he's gone. How can I make sure my granddaughter is safe? I can't keep working like this. Staying up for 36 hours straight, sleeping only 4 hours, then going back to work. I feel like giving up. What if there really is something better on the other side? But I can't quit. It's not in my nature to give up, even though I'm just so tired. Story 19. When I was about 5 years old, I was visiting my next-door neighbors to play with their 1-year-old son. His parents were cleaning out the garage while we played in his room. He was just learning to walk and was clumsy on his feet. At one point, he lost his balance and hit his head on the side of the crib. He immediately started crying, and I panicked. I didn't want his parents to think I had hurt him since we were alone, so I put my hand over his mouth to quiet him down. But he kept squirming and crying, and in my desperation, I pressed harder. After a while, he stopped moving and crying. When I took my hand away, he was lying motionless on the floor. I was terrified and ran to tell his mom that he had just fallen. His dad performed CPR while his mom screamed on the phone with 911. Thankfully, they resuscitated him before the ambulance arrived, but no one could figure out why he had just stopped breathing. About a year later, he started showing signs of neurological problems. At the time, I didn't fully understand what that meant, but as a teenager, I learned about cerebral palsy and realized I might have caused his condition. The guilt made me feel sick. I never told anyone what happened, but I tried to be extra kind and patient with him whenever I saw him. Eventually, I moved across the country. On a visit home, I learned my neighbors sold their house to afford better educational and developmental services for him. It broke my heart. Last month, I gave birth to my first child. Even though I barely remember that day, I'm paranoid about anything being too close to her face, whether it's a blanket, my chest, or her jacket hood. I can't stop feeling guilty that I have a healthy child while my old neighbors don't. Story 20. My father was an abusive drunk who worked for the Navy. He beat all of us, my siblings and me, in turn. We believe his abuse caused my brothers learning difficulties. One day when I was 7, he stopped showing up to pick us up for the weekend. He was gone, likely because beating us was no longer fun for him. In my anger, I sought revenge. I told my mother that he had touched me. The lie set off a chain of events. We were all pulled out of school, my father was arrested, and we were taken to a safe house. The authorities interviewed everyone, including my mother. Looking back now, I can't fathom how she managed to hold everything together. The case went to court. I didn't care about justice, I just wanted him in jail. Since there was no evidence, I refused an examination. He was acquitted, but he was placed on the S-offenders registry for 6 years. That meant he couldn't have children stay over at his house or visit other families without notifying the authorities. I knew he couldn't harm another family, and that felt like enough at the time. But my mother, I didn't realize how much she was suffering. She still believes what I said. She never dated again, and likely never will. She blames herself for everything. Now I'm stuck in a terrible dilemma. If I tell her the truth, she'll never forgive me. If I continue the lie, she'll never forgive herself. I don't know what to do. Story 21. That I was raped. As a male and an unattractive one for most of my life, I never imagined I'd be raped by a woman. You just don't hear about it. Not once had I heard of an adult male being raped by an adult woman before it happened to me. It happened at a party for my college department. Long story short, she drugged my drink and took me to her room. She was a housemate of the person hosting the party. Once there, she rode me, beat me, whipped me, punched me, slapped me, and sodomized me for over 2 hours. I was mostly lucid during all of this. She called me a piece of meat, treated me like a piece of meat, and I started to believe I was a piece of meat. I still do. The rape, combined with being used as an escape by the woman I loved, has left me feeling like my only worth is as a body for S. After the assault, I started cutting. I stopped when the woman I loved found out and asked me to. She helped me, used me, loved me, and then wanted nothing to do with me. It was a confusing relationship that is now over, for better or worse. What bothers me the most is how people respond when I try to talk about it. If I say I was raped by a woman, the first thing people ask is, was she hot? Yes, she was, a little. But that's not the goddamn point. I don't know how to deal with it, and the psychologists I've seen haven't been able to help. I just turned 21. Booze is easy to get, and I fear I'm slipping into a pattern that could lead to alcoholism. It's not entirely a secret. My twin, my parents, and the woman I loved all know. but no one seems to care. Story 22. I'm a good-looking, athletic, and successful man in my late 30s. I was raped by a woman, a friend of the bride, after my friend's wedding in Mexico. I was very drunk and walking her back to her room for her safety, at her request. She asked me to sit with her on the beach to talk. When I sat down, she basically climbed on top of me. I couldn't believe what was happening. I tried to push her off, but I was too drunk to stay conscious and kept passing out. I'd wake up to her continuing. I wasn't able to use protection. She didn't offer any, and I didn't have any because I didn't expect anything like that to happen. I didn't yell out because I was leaving for the US in a few hours and didn't want to risk indecency charges in Mexico. Nor did I want to explain it to the police, or worse, my wife, who was asleep in our room. At some point, I gave up and just let her finish. It felt horrible and disgusting. While she wasn't unattractive, she was not someone I would have chosen to be with, especially while sober. Afterwards, she got up and walked to her room without saying a word. I sat there for a while, then stumbled into the ocean, fully clothed, to wash off. When I returned to my room, my wife asked why I was wet, and I lied, saying I had fallen into the water. That experience shattered my self-image as a man. I couldn't fight her off, and I've struggled to forgive myself for getting into that situation in the first place. It's been a few years now. I've divorced that wife, I never told her about it, and moved on to other relationships. But every now and then, I have flashbacks. I feel gross, weak, and ashamed all over again. I could track her down and confront her or press charges, but I didn't catch anything from her, and the only lasting damage is in my mind. I've decided to let it go as a harsh lesson learned about how one seemingly harmless decision can lead to something bad when you're not in the right state of mind or physical condition. This experience has given me a new perspective and deep sympathy for what women go through far more often than men. It's made me more empathetic, but I wouldn't wish this insight on anyone. Story 23. I'm not sure if I want anyone to read this, but here it goes. I've been working as a lawyer for the past 3 years. Except, I never actually finished my law degree. I didn't pass 4 of the required subjects. I faked my bar certification and bribed people at the Bar Association to get myself enrolled. I've been practicing as a criminal litigator, but I recently screwed up a case. I lied to my client, and he got completely destroyed in court yesterday. The judge advised him to approach the Bar Association for possible restitution, and now a committee has been set up to investigate me and my work. The committee includes a senior lawyer who has always been suspicious of me. One of my former classmates works for him, and he probably mentioned the issues I had in law school. The senior lawyer told me directly that he'll be examining my degree. I can't fix this. The university I attended split off its law school into a separate university a while back. They contacted me asking if I wanted to finish my classes there, but I never replied. Even if I somehow pass my remaining subjects now, my degree would be from a different university than the one I claimed on my enrollment documents. I'm facing huge claims from my current and past clients, not to mention jail time. I'm engaged and the wedding is planned for November this year. I don't know how to come clean to my family or my fiancé. Suicide is becoming an option I'm considering very seriously. Story 24. My significant other was surely abused by her older brother for several years during her early childhood. Her mother knew about it but kept it a secret from her father. Despite this, she still talks to her brother and mother. She's never told anyone else and refuses to seek counseling, though it still haunts her. She told me about it, saying she feels better having shared it, but I know she doesn't. She has nightmares at least every other night. I've become so worried that intimacy will bring back traumatic memories for her that I've stopped initiating. At this point, we've essentially stopped touching each other, surely altogether. I'm in my 20s and now I have a non-existent life. I plan to marry her because she's the person who literally saved my life, and I want to protect her. But I'm deeply depressed about the intimacy we've lost and the likelihood that this will be my reality for the rest of my life. On the surface, it might sound like I'm just complaining about not getting but that's not it. I'm heartbroken over the loss of connection in our relationship and the fact that she refuses to seek help. I feel like a significant part of my life and our relationship will always be unfulfilled. Story 25. I cheated on my boyfriend about 8 months ago. At that time, we had been together for just over a year, and to this day, I love him more than anything. He doesn't know, and I've decided not to tell him. The other guy is a complete mess, someone I spent almost 5 years in love with, before I met my boyfriend. For some reason, he always seems to show up whenever I'm feeling really low, which is usually when I revisit the past. Around that time, I was feeling awful, doubting whether I was good enough for my boyfriend, feeling like I was holding him back, and wondering why someone like him would even want to be with someone like me. One night, I got drunk, and while spilling my feelings of inadequacy to that loser, ended up making out with him. It was a mistake I regret deeply. I haven't seen or spoken to him since, aside from sending a message to tell him that it wouldn't happen again. Despite his suggestions to carry on a secret fling, I told him that if he valued our past friendship, he wouldn't tell anyone. My boyfriend is the best man I've ever known. Kind, grounded, and everything I could ever ask for. I've kept the incident from him because in my mind, I made the mistake, not him. I believe it's my responsibility to carry that guilt rather than hurt him by telling him. It will never happen again, and if I could take it back, I would in a heartbeat. I've never questioned whether I want to be with him, only why someone as amazing as him would want to be with me. Lately, I've been feeling especially awful about this. For months, I managed to bury the memory, but now it's been haunting me again, and I can't figure out why. I feel like a terrible person. How could I do that to someone so incredible? Story 26. I'm in love with the daughter of my ex-girlfriend. I've known her since she was 12, and I stayed in a relationship with her mother for 8 years solely because I couldn't bear the thought of never seeing her daughter again. There were 3 occasions when I believe something could have happened if I had pushed it. Once when she was underage and twice since she's been older. I think she might feel something similar for me, but we've never spoken about it. I'm about 10 years older than her, and I was several years younger than her mother. I don't struggle to meet women. I've always had girlfriends. But no matter how much time passes without seeing her, as soon as I do, all those feelings come rushing back. The moment she smiles at me, I'm completely overwhelmed by an unbearable desire for her. I've never acted on it because I respect her mother and wouldn't want to betray her that way. Even now that I've broken up with her mother, I've tried to maintain some kind of friendship with her just to keep a connection to her daughter. I think about her often, and it's impossible for anyone else to measure up to the feelings I have for her. I know it's messed up that I've felt this way since she was 12, but I've never done anything inappropriate and never would. Just being around her made staying in a relationship with her mother worth it, even though I know how wrong that is. I almost certainly won't ever act on these feelings or try to have a real relationship with her. These thoughts are pointless. I just wanted to confess the truth for once. I've never told anyone about this. Story 27. My mother has only ever seen me as a financial opportunity. She used child support payments until I turned 18, and my grandfather's college money, which I've never actually seen, over $170,000. She has no genuine interest in my life beyond that. You might think, well, she obviously spent money on you while you lived with her, but that's not the case. My dad had to give me a secret debit card because he knew my mom was using all the money on herself. He once gave her a $1,400 check to buy me a laptop, but I never got it. When I was a teenager, my grandfather would send me checks for $200 to $400 for birthdays and Christmas. My mom always made me give them to her because she needed it and insisted that family comes first. If I protested, she would call me selfish, a spoiled brat, and tell me how ashamed my grandparents would be. She'd ask, "Don't you love me?" She never let me have my aunts, uncles, or grandparents' phone numbers or emails. I could only talk to them using her phone. She constantly tried to drive a wedge between my dad and me, claiming he was buying my love and trying to make her look bad. The truth is, she hasn't had a job in years and has been living off a trust fund. She blew through the $100,000 meant for my college savings, and now my dad is paying for my entire education so I can avoid student loans. It drives her crazy that she can't cut me off from anything I own because she didn't provide any of it. When she used to pay for my cell phone bill, she'd shut it off every time we had a disagreement, sometimes twice a week. Even though I know she's emotionally unfit for motherhood and that I've been a good daughter, I can't shake the feeling that I'm a terrible daughter and that I somehow owe her something. Luckily, I have the most amazing dad and a stepmother who has gone above and beyond to fill the void my mom left. I'm incredibly grateful to them, but I still wish my biological mother cared for me as much as my stepmom does. On top of everything, my mom has developed a drug and alcohol addiction that scares me every single day. But that's another story. Story 28. I live in the Bible Belt, a deeply religious, family-oriented culture. My father left when I was 4, and I recently found out that he died of a drug overdose in Colorado. My mother passed away 2.5 years ago from sarcoidosis, a rare disease, when I was 14. Since then, I've been living with my grandparents. After my mom died, I became an atheist. It took me about 6 months to admit it to my grandparents. They said it didn't bother them, but ever since, they've treated me like a stranger. They still force me to go to church and scold me whenever people find out I'm an atheist. Most of my extended family is the same. The only family member who treats me like a human being is my uncle in Tennessee. My secret is that once I finish college, I plan to cut contact with my family completely and leave the country. Around here, that would be seen as a betrayal of God and family. I've always been introverted and have a small, close group of friends I genuinely trust. Any friends outside this circle tend to drift away within a few months or years. I hope that if I ever get married, my partner won't have much family or won't expect me to get involved with them. I don't want to live long enough to meet grandchildren. I'd be happy living with just a significant other and a few friends. But I know the world is cruel. There will always be people trying to involve themselves for their own reasons. Story 29. I have cancer and no one knows about it. Not even me officially. I'm fairly certain it's metastasized to other parts of my body. I'm terrified to admit it, even to myself, and I feel stuck in the denial stage of grief. Just typing this makes my heart race. I'm still in my 20s, but the tumor first appeared in my pelvis when I was around 13. It's grown over the years and is now the size of a golf ball by my scrotum. I've been through numerous physicals, but no doctor has ever mentioned it, and I've never brought it up. Occasionally, I think about seeing an oncologist, but I have no idea how to start the conversation. Hey doc, I think I have cancer, but I've been hiding it for over 10 years. I'm scared of the consequences. Not necessarily dying, but leaving behind my SO, family and friends. I have a decent job, own a home, and have insurance, but I still find reasons not to go to the doctor. What if the treatment ruins me financially? What if I lose multiple organs? What if I don't survive at all? Sometimes I hope the tumor will go away on its own, though I know better. Other times, I wish I just dropped dead from an aneurysm. And sometimes, I imagine that I'll eventually be forced to seek help, go through treatment, and end up okay. But I'm scared. Story 30. I'm a 25-year-old male. I'm slightly overweight, not unattractive, but somewhat socially awkward. I'm not great at making new friends and have lost touch with most of my old ones. Small talk doesn't come naturally to me, though I've improved after working in retail. What really bothers me, though, is that I'm 25 and have never had a girlfriend. The first girl I liked friend-zoned me almost immediately. This was back in elementary school, so I've long since moved on. Over the years, several girls I was interested in seemed to reciprocate, but I was so afraid of rejection that I never made a move. The last girl I had a crush on, I did work up the courage to ask her to lunch during a break between classes. She accepted, and we talked and walked together. I soon learned she had a boyfriend, and my hopes were crushed. Later in the semester, I found out she had broken up with him. I was excited, but I also knew she was planning to attend school halfway across the country. Not wanting to stand in her way, I didn't pursue her. Since that semester ended, I haven't spoken to her or tried my luck with anyone else. Story 31. I think I'm in love with my male best friend. I'm a guy and I don't think I'm gay, though I'm very open about my sexuality. I don't think in terms of gay or straight, I can be attracted to someone regardless of their gender. We're both 21 and have known each other since we were 14. He's one of the few people who genuinely makes me happy, and it devastates me when he's not. Recently, he was dumped by his first girlfriend of a year, and it broke him. He's still recovering. Meanwhile, I was recently cheated on by my first real girlfriend, but I honestly didn't care. During his breakup, all I wanted was to be there for him and make him feel better, which I did as a friend. But in those moments, I wanted something more. I'm so confused about my feelings for him and whether he'd ever consider anything beyond friendship. We've joked around playing gay countless times, exchanging flirty comments or being overly comfortable around each other. Once, I half-jokingly suggested that since girls haven't worked out for us, we should just be together. He played along and it seemed to cheer him up, but he didn't take it seriously. I can't tell if it's love or just the deep bond we share as best friends. I suffer from depression, and there are a lot of other stresses in my life, but he helps alleviate that. He's always there for me, and I don't know what I'd do without him. I just wish I could figure out what this feeling really is. Story 32. I'm happily married, and my wife is pregnant. She's the most wonderful part of my life, and we've been together for 8 years, married for 5. But there's a secret that could destroy her if she ever found out. Before meeting my wife, I had a tumultuous relationship with my ex-girlfriend, who devastated me when she broke up with me 6 months before I met my wife. My ex had been bored in her marriage, and I was young and reckless. We didn't start fooling around until she and her husband had officially separated, but I wasn't helping their marriage stay together either. Her husband was verbally abusive, which I used as justification for pursuing her. As they went through a messy divorce, he became violent, once threatening to drive their car off the road with their kids in the back seat. He even bought a gun to kill me and threatened to harm my family. It was an ugly situation, but I was blinded by passion and youth. Eventually, things started to calm down, but one day she stopped taking my calls. After 2 days of silence, I went to her house early in the morning and saw her ex-husband's car outside. My stomach dropped. I later realized that around the same time, she had told me she thought she might be pregnant, but then insisted she wasn't. Years later, I stumbled across her Facebook profile and saw a child who looks exactly like me. I'm convinced she left me and got back with her ex to convince him the child was his. Now I live with the fear that this child will find me someday. If they do, I could owe years of back child support, and my wife would find out that I have a child from my past. It terrifies me to think of her learning that our first child together isn't really my first. I watch my child grow up from a distance, through pictures on Facebook, and hide the one secret that could destroy my marriage. Story 33. I'm happily married, and my wife, who is pregnant, is the most wonderful part of my life. We've been together for 8 years, married for 5, and I adore her. But there's a secret that could destroy her if she ever found out. Before I met my wife, my ex-girlfriend completely devastated me when she broke up with me. She was bored in her marriage, and I was young and reckless. We didn't start anything until she and her husband officially separated, but I certainly didn't help them reconcile. Once she signed the divorce papers, her husband dragged the process out as long as possible. She and I were passionate, especially in the bedroom. Her now ex-husband wasn't done with her, though, and things got ugly. He became violent, once nearly driving their car off the road with their kids in the back seat. He bought a gun to kill me and threatened to harm my family. It was a nightmare, and I realize now how reckless and stupid I was to stay involved. Eventually, the chaos began to settle, but one day she stopped taking my calls. For 2 days, I heard nothing. I was worried something had happened, so I went to her house early in the morning. That's when I saw her ex-husband's car parked outside. I left without confronting her, but felt sick wondering what I'd done wrong. Years later, I realized the timing of her breakup with me coincided with her telling me she might be pregnant. She later said she wasn't, but I now believe she was. Looking back, I think she got back with her ex to make him believe the child was his. Eventually, I found her on Facebook, and the pictures confirmed what I feared. This child looks exactly like me. I'm almost certain she's mine. She never told me she was pregnant, and I can't afford to reach out now. I fear back pay for child support would ruin us financially, and more importantly, my wife can never know. I'm terrified this child will find me one day, especially after turning 18, and that my wife will learn the truth, that our first child together isn't actually my first. I live with this secret every day. I watch my child grow up through Facebook, hiding the only secret I've ever truly kept from my wife. Story 34. After my dad dies, I plan to cut off contact with my family completely. I know it sounds horrible, but my family is a toxic and shady group of people, and I feel like they're killing him. I recently learned that when my dad first met my mom, he was trying to hook up with my grandma. He liked older women, I guess. My mom had been left pregnant by a crackhead who abandoned her. My dad felt sorry for her and didn't want her raising my oldest brother alone, so he married her. My dad has spent his entire life working himself to the bone to take care of us. He's had 3 major injuries on the job and now has screws in his knee and wrist, 2 metal rods in his back, and severe emphysema. He's disabled and in poor health. My oldest brother, who's 32, has 5 kids by 3 different women, and most of his paychecks go toward child support. He's constantly in and out of my parents' house and treats them terribly. My dad avoids conflict by staying in his room to avoid fights with my mom. My 22-year-old and 17-year-old brothers are no better. They're following in my oldest brother's footsteps. My mom bails them out of trouble all the time and says she'd do the same for me, but I'd never ask her for anything. My mom is a pathological liar, a cheater, and a thief. 4 years ago, while I was in the hospital having an emergency blood transfusion, she stole my debit card and withdrew $130 from my bank account. Meanwhile, my dad was at my bedside, offering his own blood to help me. The only reason my dad stays is because of my youngest brother, who was diagnosed with autism. When he was 3, my mom ran off and left my dad without a car, phone, or money, saying she was tired of supporting them alone, despite the fact that my dad supported the family for nearly 20 years on his own. My dad refuses to leave now because he knows he can't support himself or my youngest brother, and he fears my mom would put my brother in a home if he left. My dad is on disability now, but he won't qualify for Medicare for another 2 years, a stipulation of his disability case. The reality is, he won't live that long. He can barely breathe on his own and can't afford the medications he needs. I can't forgive my family for how they've treated him. They're ungrateful for everything he's done for them and constantly badmouth him. I don't understand why. My dad is the most incredible person I've ever known. It wasn't until I moved out at 17, over a decade ago when I was 30, that I realized how much he sacrificed for us. I can't stand to see what they put him through, and I know I'll never be able to forgive them for it. Story 35. Growing up, I was almost always the smartest and hardest working kid in my group of friends. I ended up attending an Ivy League graduate school and landed an extremely prestigious 6-figure job at 25. From there, I moved on to an even more prestigious position. But within 3 months of starting, I was suddenly fired without any warning or explanation. The field I work in is notoriously competitive, and even with an Ivy League degree, getting a job is hard. Being fired makes it nearly impossible. I spent the next 2 years unemployed. During that time, I was forced to abandon my once high-rolling lifestyle, weekend trips to Vegas and the like, and move back in with my parents. I sank into a deep depression, which led to a slew of mental and physical health issues: anxiety, insomnia, irritable bowel syndrome, and migraines, among others. I spent days in bed and even contemplated suicide. I know many people have had it harder than me, but going from a perfect life to everything falling apart in my 20s was devastating. With no friends left in my small town, I started hanging out with the kids from high school who hadn't gone anywhere in life. They didn't judge me for being unemployed, but I ended up getting involved with hardcore drugs and even some criminal activity. Before giving up completely and applying to McDonald's, I decided to take one last shot at getting a job. This time I lied. I told potential employers I had taken time off to care for my sick mom, a total fabrication. Through an unbelievable stroke of luck, I landed a job as prestigious as the one I lost. It might sound like a happy ending, but I'm a complete wreck. My mental and physical illnesses haven't gone away, although I do have health insurance now. Worse, I live with the guilt of knowing I got this job by lying. Every day I'm terrified my employer will find out the truth. On top of that, I'm paralyzed by anxiety about my work. My previous employer told me I was being fired because my work wasn't good enough, and that doubt haunts me. I've developed destructive habits, near constant drug use, alcoholism, and irresponsible-ness. The only thing keeping me grounded is going to church regularly, even though I don't believe in God. I may have my old life back on paper, but I'm still broken inside.